Hi, I'm Angela Wolf. I'm a fashion designer and couture sewing expert. And today I'm going to show you how to alter a basic pattern to make one of our biggest trends, which is color blocking. Now, most of the time you see color blocking in dresses and skirts. But today I'm going to show you how to take just a simple top and alter it to create beautiful designs. Not only are they beautiful, they're slimming. So some of these back here, you have to be really careful of how you place your color blocking. Like on this one here, the dark color on the outside is very slimming. This is a very simple top, just with 3 pieces. This one's a little bit more elaborate, and here we have, you need to be careful of where your lines are. You do not want a seam going right across the bust. You want to either go up or below. And look at this little piece here. It's very slimming to the waist. So let's get started. This is so simple to do. So first what you do is you create your design. So this is just fun, you just sketch. So keeping in mind that you do not want anything here and any seam here. That's your bust points. So I'll start at the neckline and just make a little curve. That's one piece. And let's do another curve. So let's just make this piece very simple. Now I could even go a little bit more here. What about here? There you go. So this is going to be my new design. So next you have to do, when you cut your pattern apart, you're going to have to add seam allowances to all of your new seams. So what I usually do is take another color Sharpie and put lines like this to remind myself when I'm cutting that I need to add seam allowances. Because if you do not need to add seam allowances to the outer edge of your top because you already have those. So here we go. Here's our green. The other thing you need to do is to retrace your grain line on every single pattern piece. So here's my grain line here, and I can actually see through my grid paper underneath. So this is lined up, and then I'm just going to come over here. Here's another one, and here's another one. So there you go. So all of my grain lines are the same. And the only other thing you need to do after that is I have here, number your pieces. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That does not mean that it's the sewing order. It means that you'll be able to put your pattern back together. Just think of it like a puzzle. And lastly, what I do is I put 1X here for color number 1. This will be color number 2, color number 1, color number 2. So you know what color you need to cut. That's pretty simple. So you're going to cut that apart, and you'll end up with a bunch of pattern pieces similar to this. Now let's move over to this. This top is a pretty wild print. I mean, you could wear it by yourself, but you might want to tone it down a little bit. So I've already color blocked this for you. There you go. Now look at the difference when you take away. See how fun that is? Now you don't necessarily, this is a knit, but you could use this on any fabrics. Like this one here, I have a knit with silk charmeuse. Who would ever think of attaching those two, but it's really easy. So lastly, you need to consider the order that you're sewing your garment in. This piece can be sewn here, and you always need to sew in a complete row. You do not want to sew these 2 pieces here because you're left here. So you kind of need to lay out all your pieces and know what order you're going to sew them. So I'm going to sew those 2 together, and then I'm going to attach these 2 here, this one here, and then this one, and then sew here, and then sew here. So let's just sew one of the curves. Now on this piece here, I did not add seam allowances to this because I kind of wanted you to see how the shirt looked all as one. Now I do cut apart my shirts and put these back together, but then I use a serger with a very narrow seam, and then my shirt is just a little bit tighter. As long as your shirt, you need about 1/2 inch extra room. So let's sew these together on a serger and show you how easy it is to sew these curves. So we have our outer curve on the top and our inner curve on the bottom. It really doesn't matter which way you sew those, but I'm going to do it this way just so you can see. I'm using kind of a lighter color thread just so you can see what I'm talking about as far as the seam. Now this is a very, very, very narrow seam. So let's stitch. I'm going to stop for a second. I want to give you a serger tip. See this long chain here on the end of the serger? That thread chain? You want to start with a long chain and you want to end with a long chain, and that will prevent having to rethread your serger over and over. stitch through the seam. Being very careful not to sew over your pins. The knife on your serger will not like that. So here we go. Again, remember I said that my sides are not going to match up, but leaving a long chain. Let's see what we have here. See how thin this seam is? Look at that, it's beautiful. Now these are two knits, an outer circle and an inner circle. Let me show you. Now what I would usually do is press this then, and sometimes I'll top stitch and sometimes I won't. It just depends how flat I want the garment. But look at how perfect that looks. So that's so easy to do. The other thing that you need to keep in mind is once you've finished your top, especially if you have not added seam allowances and you just decided to cut apart an old shirt and add some color to it, when you're all finished, you need to go back to your original pattern and take your entire garment, which obviously I don't have the whole garment, but this will give you a good idea. Lay this on top of your original pattern and then trim along any edges. Like for example, this is way too long. You would just cut that off and make it just like the top. So see how easy that is? So why don't we take one more piece and just run it through the serger. Just a part of it. Again, this is the big part of the curve here. Let's go back to the serger. Now this time I'm not going to pin it. I'm just going to run it through, and I'm going to show you another trick for sewing if you're in a really big hurry. You can whip these shirts out in an hour. Look how my finger is right underneath here. I'm actually holding the top layer of my fabric while I'm sewing. It takes a little bit of practice, but once you get the hang of it, it's really easy. Now I'm being very careful that the bottom is here and the top is here. And I'm still using my fingers to manipulate this fabric. You might find it easier to pin on the sharp curves, but the other ones are, see how good that looks? And again, my seam is too long, so when I bring this back to the pattern, I'll trim that. But you get the idea about color blocking. So I hope that you'll try this technique. You could try it on pants, skirts, shorts, dresses, whatever you like, but a knit top you can finish in 1 hour.